what I wanted to talk about today was the origins of sampling and how they're racist. Oh, yeah. I saw a video of Lizzo talking about how sampling started, and it was a very like woman way of telling the story where she missed most of the details and the facts, right? But it was like the gist.
Yeah.
We're gonna insert it here.
The sampling laws, I feel like are racist.
Why?
I feel like it's racist because let me actually
Break it down.
let me break it down. The first time people started sampling was who? It was rappers in the 80s and 90s. They were sampling.
Most of James Brown, a lot of James. They were sampling a lot of James.
So they were sampling records because they didn't have access to big studios. They didn't grow up learning how to play bass and stuff like that. They created the genre of hip hop through sampling records in their, their parents' vinyls and
You're
stuff
taking
like
what
that.
you got.
There were no sampling laws back then. It was all a free for all.
If you write a song, somebody steal your song, that property, that, you feel what I'm saying? That's a part of music. I didn't never know it started from hip hop, and so the whole time I'm like, man.
All them songs that sounded the same in the 50s, oh my darling, all them songs, all that rock and roll that was stole from black people, there was no sampling laws back then when you were stealing rock and roll from Sister Rosetta Tharpe.
This is interesting because the way she told the story, I'm like, this sounds like everything that happens to us, right? So I went back and I just asked ChatGPT initially, how did it start? Obviously, you had like DJs in the very beginnings of hip hop sampling music with like breakbeats and stuff like that, like Kool Herc, Grandmaster Flash. A lot of them were like James Brown, Parliament Parliament Funkadelic, and Curtis Mayfield. Those are a lot of the original ones. But as it started to get into the 90s, people started to have things to say about it. Two of the biggest ones that were initially flagged were essentially before the first court case, which was Grand Upright Music versus Warner Bros. Inc. It was an artist named Gilbert Sullivan who sued Biz Markie about a song called Alone Again Naturally. Before that, artists would just come out and say this is wrong. And they were trying to find ways to do this with their lawyers. But essentially, Gilbert Sullivan was the first to do it. And the judge on that case, the first thing he led with was saying, "Thou shalt not steal." That's what the judge said to Biz Markie about the song.
What the fuck?
And essentially, this laid precedent for every single sample clearance since then in 1991. This was the first one.
Damn.
And so the initial three like hip hop figures that had real problems with this were Biz Markie, Public Enemy, and then De La Soul, which was why a lot of their music was not able to be uploaded on the streaming services for almost 30 years. I thought this was crazy. This also explains some things that happened afterwards. Like the reason that the Puff Daddy shiny suit era was a thing, like when he was doing all the bright colors and the shiny dancing and stuff like that, because he got a record deal in which he got a record deal that allowed him to use all the big samples and get them cleared because the label owned all the big samples. So he made the deal with that in mind. And so to show the fact that he was making a ton of money, like that's why he was like trying to be super flashy and big about it. Cause he was like, bro, like the All About the Benjamin sample is like historic. Like these samples he was able to get, nobody else could get. So he was really just popping his shit, for lack of better terms.
Right.
I thought that was nuts. But it definitely goes to show, bro, we start everything. And even though like I feel like the fact that we were able to take their stuff and make it sound better, it's crazy how we took some of, I guess, did we take their stuff and make it better? Because then you could somewhat justify licensing. But it did hurt a big part of the industry, and it hurts music in general, like when you now have to go ask somebody to use their song.
Yeah, it definitely limits creativity. That will parlay into the thing that I was talking about too, with the AI companies ripping off songs. But I've always said it should be way easier for artists to sample. I feel like obviously it's mostly because the company's owned and they want to get their residuals off of every single song. But like, it should be more so the artists are getting to say, yes, you can use my song, no, you can't. Or that there's just a more open way for the market to be more open for people to just be able to buy those rights or be able to, I guess, lease those rights out for a certain amount of time or whatever, or however it would go. But yeah,
I'm trying to think if I think licensing is a bad thing. I guess it wouldn't be a bad thing, right?
Mhm.
Because the fact that you can make something and somebody like references your work, and just because because your work was so good and other people want to get use out of it, you get paid from that, from the utility of something. So I guess it is cool, but it's interesting to see how initially like we was just like, and still to this day, like that's how a lot of DJs get on, is like messing with other people's stems and vocals and beats and stuff like that.
yeah.
But it sometimes gets somewhat like the line is so blurry. That's why I feel like I don't know. But I guess it's a net positive. That's how I would say it.
I think it's a net positive. Even a good example of that, Cardi B using the Imaginary Players beat, even though she used directly the same exact beat, probably got clearance from Jay that made his version go up after that. And I feel like that happens a lot, where you hear a sample and then you like it because of that, almost like you almost go back and give this old song more love because the new song came with that sample. I feel like that happens a lot.
Do you think Cardi B Imaginary Players was a net positive on the world?
There's a lot going on in the world. I don't know if it just changed the world for her to do Imaginary Players, but I feel like it was probably a net positive for that song specifically. So speaking specifically to what you was talking about, like, is it a net positive for the artist? Is it a net positive for the song? Is it a net positive for music? I think it is, because you're getting another use out of something that could have been either falling off the charts or collecting dust for some people.
Okay. You heard it here. Yeah, I guess that was just some history I wanted to share very quickly. But you had, oh, this was interesting. Kanye West got sued for Bound 2. I'm just looking at a list of people who got sued.
I didn't see that.
He got sued for Bound 2, Ultralight Beam. Drake got sued for Pound Cake and
Yeah.
Nice for What. Jay-Z and Timberland got sued by Egyptian singer Balig Hamdi for Big Pimpin', but the case was dismissed. I digress.